All right, folks. So we're gonna jump into another topic, or just another some more helpful insights, and that is the cost of self doubt. And one of the things that I want us to walk away with is to at least understand how self doubt affects us. A lot of people know, but then there are other folks who maybe you just haven't put a name to it yet. And I know sometimes we can be hesitant about, you know, calling out some of the things that, hold us back. Sometimes we might think that maybe this is just a short phase. Like maybe I have a little bit of doubt today, but I don't have, like, let's say, a long lasting sense of self doubt until you look back and you're like, whoa, hold up, there's a lot of opportunities that were missed, and it's because you know I, there must be something to this self-doubt thing. And so I wanted to talk about how, in my opinion at least, right, over maybe, let's say, the past 9 to 10 years, I've had some good ideas. There's some things that I started that sputtered out or what have you. And I think many of them had been due at the time to self doubt. So, one of the first thing I wanted to share with you all, right? One of the things that my self doubt, and that's what I'm going to focus on, right? It's kind of like what my self doubt. We're not going to jump and dive into the causes of self doubt, right? I'm not, trying to be, your scientist or your therapist, but in general, there are many things that can lead to self doubt. Okay, transition, unexpected life event can lead to self doubt, especially if it's a negative one. There's sometimes positive life events that can lead some folks to self doubt, right? Like maybe you got a huge new opportunity, the career that you want, you've landed it, but maybe the opportunity is a big one, and maybe you feel a little bit, it makes you feel a little bit smaller now that you're in a big C, even though they believe in you or what have you. Just seeing the big opportunity, the bigger numbers, the bigger projects may potentially have you feeling like, whoa, do I really have the skills to be here? But then there are other types of events that can occur, which are negative events. So in my case, one of those things was going through a divorce, years ago. And so things like that can definitely knock your self confidence and lead you to a position of self doubt. So one of the things that happens, or at least the way that some of the ways that it's cost me, was for me getting stuck and frozen. Okay, and one of the way that this manifested itself was probably in overthinking. Overthinking is, in my, kind of like the way that I talk about it, is a type of being stuck and a type of being frozen. And so what happens is, in my case, it was not being able to make a move because I had so many different moves that I could make on my mind. And really and truly, it was it's funny because what we're really talking about is a perfection, right? A perfectionist syndrome, okay? And some of the time, like, it's interesting because we don't think about it in that way. We don't think about perfectionism and self doubt going together. But for many of us, when there's a big opportunity in front of you, or when you go through a traumatizing life event and your self confidence is shot, you become a perfectionist. And it makes sense. Why do you become a perfectionist? Not every single time, right? But you can become a perfectionist. And you can become a perfectionist because now you again, life has jostled you a bit, and now you want that sure footing. And so now, before you're gonna take a step into any new situations, or before you're going to try something, or take action, you want to be you want the assurance that things are going to work out in the way that you want them to work out, in the way that you plan. You, in essence, want to guarantee success. Okay. And so that want for perfection often keeps us stuck because we're ruminating in our minds, how do I make sure that this thing works? And guess what? A lot of the times there's no perfect direct linear answer to get from point A to Z. You can't know everything that's going to potentially come up in front of you, right? But that self-doubt again leads to you being stuck and frozen. And so in many ways I feel like I had been getting stuck and frozen for nearly a decade. I had the most amount of great ideas that somebody could probably have, but couldn't take action on any of them, at least not in the way that I would have wanted to, because I kept doubting whether or not it was a good idea, which leads to the second thing, right? Which sometimes leads to further self-doubt, which was watching others capitalize oftentimes on ideas that are not as good as yours. Okay? But that happens, right? You're sitting there, you're watching individuals, you're like, man, well, their idea isn't that great, or at least it's a good idea, but it's not necessarily unique. But they seem to be taking off with it. Why? Because there's value in being able not to focus on the greatness of the idea per se, but value in just taking action on the idea, because there are more people not taking action than there are that take action. Okay? I'll leave that there. And then lastly, another thing. So you have the individual who's stuck and can't get moving at all, right? Then you're standing by and watching other people, take off. But then there's also the individual who you do try to take, to make things happen. You do try to take action, but you can't. It doesn't seem like you can do it with any type of consistency. And again, it goes back to that, again, these things are tied together, right? So there's some overlap here, but it goes back to that. I start, but I don't see immediate results. And so I doubt, right? Is this really worth it? Do people really value this? Okay. Was this really a good idea? And this is why what I spoke about before, that there is value in just making the attempt, is important, because that's one of the things that can help us get out of self-doubt. It's one of the things that can help us get out of stuckness. Let me even use an example of like what's happening right now. Okay. I had stopped speaking for some time. I had stopped shooting YouTube videos for some time. And so trying to get back into the game of doing it was, a challenge, because in my head, I remember how I used to speak. And I'm like, well, I want to jump right back in and be immediately there. Okay. But that's just not how things work. But if I had done this, sit there and say, how do I get my mojo back? Right. How do I get that skill set back? And the thing is, you can't get that skill set back other than to jump back in the game, have a few false starts maybe, or maybe not be as clean, maybe not as clear, and maybe not as concise as you want to be, but then to start to just realize that, oh, that muscle memory starts kicking back in, and then all of a sudden the ideas start flowing, right? But Chris Do used this example once, right? But he was like, when a body of water is trying to create a new path and find new avenues, it first has to push out the sludge that's there keeping it stuck. But once it gets that sludge out, man, that water starts flying through. Okay, so there's a cost to self-doubt keeps us stuck. Take action, even if that action isn't perfect, even if it's not clean, but those imperfect actions will eventually push out that sludge and allow you to start seeing the some of the results. So start seeing that skill set, start reminding you of the dopeness that's within you. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that for now. Excellence has no curfew. Average is failure. Peace.